Yes, sir, I have done.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so we shall get started with today's lecture. I have no specific, housekeeping announcements to make today. So we'll just right away get started with the lecture. I shall share the projector screen. Okay, I assume that you guys are able to see the uh, see my sheet of paper. So the topic for just a moment. The topic for today's lecture is control system design in the frequency domain. A numerical example. So we shall take a numerical example and go over the various considerations that go into the design of a feedback system. Numerical example. Okay. So let us briefly recap what we discussed in the previous lecture. Uh, so first we talked about Nyquist stability criterion, which is a very important missing link, because we found frequency domain attractive because it could convert convolution integral into a product, and that product had a definite physical interpretation as a amplifier of some sort, and therefore some of the things that we learned with regular amplifiers could be extended without too much trouble to more general linear dynamic systems. Okay, so a linear dynamic system could be viewed as a frequency dependent amplifier, frequency content amplifier, right? So that was a very nice thing because it helped us quantify the extent by which we would reject disturbances, or the extent by which changes in the plant's parameters or the plant structure would affect my output in a feedback configuration. But all of this would uh, you know uh, uh, end up becoming a waste of effort if we do not have ways to and confirm that the high gain that we choose would not destabilize our feedback system. So to save the day, therefore, along came Nyquist stability theory. Uh, so Nyquist stability theory and stability criterion. I did not discuss the theory in any detail. I just stated the criterion. So we draw the Nyquist plot for the transfer function, which is essentially the transfer function p of j omega, a polar plot of the transfer function p of j omega, as omega is varied from 0 to infinity. That is what a Nyquist plot is. There's a second part to it, which is when omega is varied from minus infinity to 0, but that's a reflection of the first plot itself about the x-axis. And for the other part, the D-shaped contour, for all practical and physical systems, the gain of that plant will go to 0. Okay, so all the examples we took also were of the same kind, but even more generally, the gain of the plant will go to 0, because if you remember, I discussed this couple of lectures back. The degree of the numerator polynomial of the transfer function is always less than the degree of the denominator polynomial. So as s is tended to infinity, therefore this transfer function will always go to 0. Okay, so we talked about the Nyquist stability criterion. So if you draw the Nyquist plot, then the number of encirclements of the Nyquist plot, clockwise encirclements of the Nyquist plot, is equal to the difference between the number of closed loop poles z minus and the number of open loop poles, which are on the right half of the complex plane. So this is something that we can examine by drawing the Nyquist plot. The P is something that it is assumed we know, because the open loop system is something that we would have designed ourselves. So the number of unstable poles on the right half of the poles on the right half of the complex plane is assumed to be known, and this will allow us to calculate the number of right half plane closed loop poles. Okay, so to familiarize ourselves with this tool, we drew the Nyquist plots for various transfer functions. transfer functions. And then there was one important realization that was conveyed to us through the Nyquist plots, and that was that a proportional controller, simple though it is not always the best choice to satisfy some performance requirements to design a feedback system. And that is because a proportional controller requires its gain to be high for the benefits of feedback control to be reaped. But if the gain is made high at all frequencies, including at frequencies where the gain approaches, where the Nyquist plot crosses the real axis, then that enormous gain will result in encirclement of the critical point. So we learned this important lesson that although we want gain to be high, we cannot be, we cannot increase the gain without rhyme or rhythm. We will pay a price. We, in fact, will pay a fatal price because our system is going to become unstable. Okay, so we needed to be canny in the way we increase the gain. So we should not go with a proportional controller despite its simplicity. It is better to go with a controller whose gain itself is frequency dependent. So what does it mean to say that a controller has a frequency dependent gain? In essence, what it means is that it is a linear dynamic system. Okay, so because a linear dynamic system, something whose input output relationship is governed by a differential equation, is basically, as we discussed earlier, a frequency dependent amplifier, right? So we needed to have a dynamic controller instead of a static gain, and that was prudent for making sure that both performance as well as stability requirements are simultaneously met. Okay, so that was a Nyquist criterion indicated that our controller should itself be a dynamic system. Okay, then the last point was that we noticed that the Nyquist plots of most transfer functions are not simple looking curves. So except perhaps for the first order system where it looked like a nice semicircle, for practically every other system, it is some weird curve which is not recognizable as something that is popular and common. It's not a spiral, it's not a circle, it's not an ellipse, it's not a straight line, etc., etc. So that was one problem with the Nyquist plot of any transfer function. The second problem was that I am not satisfied with simply drawing the Nyquist plot of a particular plant. What I need to do is actually draw the Nyquist plot of the product of the plant and the controller. So if the controller was a simple proportionality controller, there would be no problems because I just need to draw the plant alone and then I can scale up that Nyquist plot to get the Nyquist plot of the controller times the plant. But we decided just now that we are not going to go with a static controller. We are not going to go with a simple proportionality gain. We are going to have a frequency dependent amplifier, right? So therefore, the product of the controller and the plant has a Nyquist plot that is completely unlike the Nyquist plots of either the plant alone or the controller alone. And guessing how that would look like is a bit of a challenge. Okay, so that was the second reason why Nyquist plots, though fundamental they are for determining stability in the frequency domain, are not as good as design tools. Okay, so this was where along came Bode and Hendrik Bode, and he introduced the Bode plots, okay, which convert Nyquist plots into more intuitive plots. The information is the same as what is available in Nyquist plot. It is just that it is plotted in a different style so that it is more amenable, more user-friendly and intuitive for the design engineer. That is because the Bode plot has its y-axis as the log of magnitude. It's actually two plots. One is log of magnitude, the second is phase. So the product of two transfer functions becomes a summation of their logarithms. So the magnitude of a product becomes the summation when we take logarithms. So that's one reason. So logarithms, so summations are far more easy to visualize, to imagine, and so on and so forth. So I have the Bode plot of the controller and Bode plot of the plant. It's much more straightforward for me to imagine how the summation of these two Bode plots look like compared to product of those two complex numbers look like. Okay, compared to how the product of the complex numbers look like. Same holds for phase also. The x-axis was chosen to be log omega in both cases for a particular reason. So when you draw the Bode plot of typical transfer functions, which are ratios of polynomials, we saw that for most frequencies other than the frequency where the pole of the transfer function lies, for most frequencies, the transfer function goes as logarithm of omega, some multiple times logarithm of omega. Okay, so therefore it makes sense to choose the x-axis to be log omega, so that in that plot this curve becomes a straight line. Okay, so this is the reason why we we carefully choose the axes of the Bode plot to be log magnitude and log frequency, or phase and log frequency. And with this choice, it becomes fairly intuitive, about as intuitive as it can get for us to execute control system design. And that is precisely what we would do in today's lecture. Now, before we proceed further, I assume that all of you have been introduced to Bode plots and Nyquist plots in your undergraduate education. I just was curious, were you introduced Bode plots first or Nyquist plots first? Can someone please unmute and answer my question?
Sir, it was Bode plots first.
Okay, who is this? Rajpal Singh, is it?
Yes, sir, it's
Rajpal.
Okay.
Okay, that is the biggest blunder that any instructor can make, for one simple reason. Bode plots are fundamental, do not reveal anything fundamental about the system that we are trying to control. Okay, they are merely design tools. They make our design experience more smooth and easy. Nyquist plots, on the other hand, are fundamental in the sense that the number of encirclements of that critical point is the only way in which you can judge the stability or the lack thereof of a feedback system. Okay, so is that true for others also? For others also exposed to Nyquist plots after they were exposed to Bode plots?
So
Anybody else wants to comment on that?
Nyquist plots.
Nyquist plots first. Okay, good,
yes,
good. So any other inputs? Anybody else wants to speak up and discuss how this topic was approached?
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, there is nothing Nyquist plot and Bode plot. We had plot.
Yes, sir. Same
you
for
weren't
me
given?
also. We have not studied, sir, any this type of plots in my undergrad course.
Okay. So even so, did you guys have any control systems course at all in that case?
No, sir. No, sir. In my course,
No,
there is
sir.
no control. No, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Okay.
these things
It's
are
very
not
sad.
there in the gate also, sir.
This is a core course in electronics. In mechanical, few colleges offer it as like elective course, and most of the colleges don't offer such courses. So that is.
Oh, okay. But it's very sad because these are very important. In fact, it is more important to mechanical engineers than it is to sometimes to electrical engineers, because there are lots of dynamic systems that need to be controlled by these tools. Anyway, so Nyquist plots are more important ones, because in the past, when I speak to students from electronics background, they too have the same story to tell, to narrate, that they were taught Bode plots first, after which they were taught Nyquist plots. But then that naturally leads to this question: why are there two plots with the same information? So Nyquist plots also have the open loop transfer function C times P of j omega, except that it is a polar plot, whereas Bode plots also contain the same information, plotted differently. So why are there two different plots? That question will not get answered if they are introduced in the wrong sequence. So the right sequence is to notice that Nyquist plots are the final courts of appeal to determine the stability of a feedback system. And Bode plots are design tools which make it easy for us to execute the design. So with that, let us get started with today's lecture. Before we get going with control system design in the frequency domain, let us first quantify the extent of stability of a feedback system. Let us find ways to quantify the extent of stability. We could determine that we could come up with a test to tell whether our system is stable or not. That's the number of encirclements test. Okay, but suppose the system is not encircling, how close or how far away are we from instability? How do we characterize that? How do we quantify that? There are two metrics that help us to quantify how close a stable system is to instability. Okay, so these are the notions of the phase margin and the gain margin. So let us first discuss that. Okay, so let me once again take the Nyquist plot of the third order system. So henceforth we shall only focus on stable open loop systems. Okay, the plant has all of its poles on the left half of the complex plane. So the number of encirclements of the critical point will simply be the number of closed loop poles on the right half of the complex plane. Okay, so let us assume that's the kind of system that we are trying to control. They're all stable systems left to themselves. Okay, so this is real part of C times P of j omega. This is the imaginary part of C times P, C of j omega times P of j omega. Okay, now what is the critical point here? The critical point is -1. So at the critical point, what is the magnitude of C times P of j omega? Times P of j omega, what is that? That's going to be equal to 1, right? And what is the angle of this complex number C times P of j omega? Angle of C of j omega times P of j omega, what will that be equal to? It will be equal to minus pi radians or minus 180 degrees, right? Minus 180 degrees or plus 180 degrees, they're all the same. They're cyclically equivalent. Okay, so this is the the angle is a critical angle and is a critical magnitude, if you wish to view it that way. So how far away is our system's gain from the critical gain is something that will help us determine how far away our system is from instability. Okay, ideally at this particular frequency where the real axis crossing happens, the gain should be as small as possible. Okay, so this frequency, by the way, has a name. It's called as a phase crossover frequency, omega PC. Omega PC corresponds to phase crossover frequency. Okay, why is it called phase crossover frequency will become apparent when you look at the Nyquist, the Bode plot, because in the Bode plot, the phase goes from some value less than -180 to some value greater than -180. Okay, in magnitude. So likewise, in terms of the phase of this complex number C times P, the angle minus pi is the critical angle. Okay, and we want the angle when the magnitude is equal to 1, we want the angle to be less than minus pi. Okay, when I say less than in minus pi, I mean in magnitude. Okay, not if I were to take the negative sign into account, it should be greater than minus pi. Okay, so that our system will once again not encircle the point -1. Okay, so there are two metrics therefore that capture the extent by which our feedback system is stable. One is called as the gain margin. So the gain margin is given by 1 by C times C of j omega times P of j omega evaluated at omega GC, omega phase crossover. Okay, so this indicates the extent by which I can amplify the gain before I end up starting to encircle the point -1. Okay, so the larger this number, the greater is the gain by which I can amplify before I start to encircle the point -1, and therefore the more stable our system is. Okay, so this is one important metric that will help us capture how close we are to instability. Okay, the second important metric is how far away we are from the point -1, how far away we are from the phase minus pi when the gain itself is equal to 1. So to get the gain, to find out at what frequency the gain is equal to 1, you notice that from the origin to this point -1, the distance itself is 1 unit. So if I were to draw a circle, centered at the origin and of radius 1 unit, okay, the point on the Nyquist plot where the circle meets the Nyquist plot is the point where the gain is exactly equal to 1. Okay, so at this particular frequency, omega, the magnitude of the transfer function c times p will be equal to 1 unit, because it is the intersection of this unit circle with this Nyquist plot. Okay, there's a special name for this frequency. This is called as a gain crossover frequency, omega GC. Okay, so omega GC corresponds to gain crossover frequency. Okay, so now this angle phi, I'll label this angle as phi. This angle phi is indicative of how far away we are from instability. So suppose the gain crossover frequency was very close to the critical point, or in other words, if phi was very close to 0, then this Nyquist plot will go very close to the point -1 and then finally come down. So you expect therefore that such a closed loop system, even though it is stable, is not very stable in some sense. So it's not going to be as stable as we would like it to be. So the larger this angle phi, the more stable the system is. Just as the larger this gain margin, the more stable the system is. Okay, so the second notion which helps us quantify the extent of stability of a feedback system is the notion of phase margin. Okay, the phase margin by definition is equal to pi plus the angle of c times p of j omega at the frequency omega gain crossover, omega GC. Okay, this is by definition the phase margin. Okay, now in both cases we are able to ascertain that our closed loop system is going to be stable. But if you compare the stability decisions that we could make of our closed loop system in time domain by using pole placement with the frequency domain technique, what you discover is that in the frequency domain you can only answer the yes or no question. Okay, you can only answer whether it is stable or not. Of course, it turns out that that's all that is needed at the moment. But in terms of the power, this is definitely inferior to state space, because in state space not only can I say whether the system is stable or not, but I can also tell you directly where the closed loop poles are, because I've chosen my controller gain in such a manner that I place the closed loop poles wherever I want them to be placed. So pole placement by definition gives me that freedom of locating the closed loop poles wherever I want them to be situated. Here on the other hand, what can I say about the closed loop poles? This is the Nyquist plot of the open loop transfer function. Okay, I can only look at the encirclement of the point -1 and say whether the closed loop transfer function that I would have for this particular open loop transfer function is going to be stable or not. Okay, nothing more can be said. I cannot tell you where the closed loop poles are. Okay, how many closed loop poles there are, where are they all located? None of these questions are answered directly by the frequency domain tool of Nyquist plots. Okay. However, there is a small silver lining to this handicap. Okay, it turns out that for most dynamic systems, we talked about this notion of the dominant pole, right? So the dominant pole is one whose real part is smallest, and therefore its response dominates the overall response of a dynamic system. It turns out that despite our closed loop system being, although it may be a high order system with lots of poles, of course, all of them on the left half of the complex plane by design, it turns out that of these lot of poles, only a pair of poles are important. Okay, and that pair of poles are the dominant poles. This pair, they are complex conjugate pairs, the ones whose real parts are the smallest, which are closest to the imaginary axis. These are the poles which end up dominating the response of our closed loop system, even though our closed loop system might be a high order system. It may be a third order system, it may be a 10th order system, but regardless of that order, okay, when I were to plot its response to various inputs, because the other modes die down so quickly, what really matters when push comes to shove, are the first two poles, the complex conjugate poles that are closest to the origin. Okay, it turns out that even though I cannot tell exactly where all the poles of my feedback system are with Nyquist plots, I still can say where this pair of dominant poles are. Okay, given the information about the phase margin and the gain crossover frequency, I can tell roughly where the dominant poles are. Okay, those are the most important poles, and fortunately the saving grace with frequency domain based design is that I can tell roughly where they are. Okay, I'm going to give you the expression right now. So it turns out that if I can model my closed loop system as a second order system, because there I have this pair of dominant closed loop poles, its transfer function will roughly look like omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square. Okay, this will be the c times p by 1 plus c times p. Roughly, I'll put an approximate sign because this is the approximate transfer function if you are taking into account only the dominant poles. The other poles will contribute to other terms which don't show up significantly when we're looking at the response of this closed loop system to various inputs and disturbances and so on and so forth. Okay, so the poles of this are at, omega n. So in the complex plane, I shall locate the poles of this guy. So the pole of this is the real part is minus zeta omega n. Okay, and the imaginary part is omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square. Okay, this you can see very readily by looking at the zeros of the denominator polynomial of this transfer function. So this is one pole. The other pole is its complex conjugate located here. So these are the only two poles of the closed loop system that matter as far as its overall response is concerned, although there may be other poles whose locations we cannot tell. Okay, so the question now is, we have this gain crossover frequency, phase crossover frequency, gain margin, phase margin. These are all attributes of the open loop system. Open loop systems, Nyquist plot. How are they related to these two terms here? The zeta omega n and omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square. How are these terms related to that? So that at least I have a rough idea of what the closed loop poles are, at least the dominant poles are going to look like, given the phase margin that I am considering and the gain crossover frequency or the phase crossover frequency that I'm, that I would be, that I would have as part of my design. Okay, so without providing the proof to this, it is possible to prove it, but it is not necessary here because it's not very important. Let me just state the facts. Okay, the phase margin, when expressed in degrees, phase margin is of course an angle, right? So when the phase margin is expressed in degrees, you can show that that value is approximately 1/100th of the closed loop damping factor zeta. Okay, so if my 100 times the closed loop damping factor zeta. So in other words, if my damping factor zeta is 0.4, my phase margin is going to be roughly equal to 40 degrees. So if I want my closed loop system to exhibit dynamics roughly of a second order system with damping of 0.4, then my open loop system needs to have a phase margin of about 40 degrees. If I want the system to exhibit a response which corresponds to a second order system of damping, let us say 0.2, then the phase margin that's necessary for that open loop system would be 20 degrees, and so on and so forth. Okay, so although I cannot tell where all the closed loop poles are, the two poles that matter a lot, the dominant poles, their information can be approximately obtained from the Nyquist plot. The second part is the omega n term here. This is the closed loop system's natural frequency. It can be shown that omega n is approximately equal to, so omega gc is approximately equal to omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square. Okay, so when I look at the gain crossover frequency and the phase margin together, from the phase margin information I can get zeta, the closed loop damping. From the gain crossover frequency information I can get omega n. which is the natural frequency of the closed loop system. Okay, so there is a correlation between the open loop system's specifications, namely the gain crossover frequency and the phase margin, and the closed loop system's pole locations, at least the dominant pole locations. Okay, any questions so far?
Hello,
Sir?
Yes.
Yeah, will omega GC, is it necessarily always on the left half of the plane?
Omega GC is a frequency. So
Yeah.
if I have to locate
phi angle, can it be greater than 90, like light to the right side?
you want to know if phi can be greater than 90 degrees.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In principle, there is nothing preventing that from happening, but it makes this design a very conservative one. You can have phi greater than 90 degrees, but then you will have a system which is very slow and so on. Okay, because its bandwidth, its gain crossover frequency will be probably very low, and therefore the system's bandwidth will be very small, and therefore it's possible. There's nothing preventing that from happening. It is seldom used because it is very conservative.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question? Subhadeep Sahu has a question.
Hello, sir. So that phase margin you've written equals to zeta into 100. That part, sir, you have given some example. I could not get it, sir. Please repeat that.
So you are familiar with the notion of a damping factor from your vibrations course, I presume, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Good. So if I want my closed loop system, after I wrap my feedback around it, my closed loop system might have many poles. Okay, the number of poles of the closed loop system will be equal to the number of poles of the open loop system. But of these poles, only a pair of poles which are closest to the imaginary axis are the ones that are going to dictate the response of the closed loop system, and these are the dominant poles. So now I have written out the transfer function of the closed loop system approximately as the transfer function of just that I would have if I only had just those two dominant poles, and that is of this particular form: omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square. Okay, here zeta is a damping factor. Now, is there any connection between the closed loop system's parameters, namely zeta and omega n, the natural frequency of the closed loop system, the damping factor of the closed loop system, to the open loop system's attributes, parameters, such as the phase margin or the phase crossover frequency or the gain crossover frequency or the gain margin? Is there any connection between the two? So that by looking at the open loop system's attributes, I can roughly predict what the closed loop system's behaviors attributes are going to be. That is the question. It turns out that there is such a connection. So the phase margin is actually 100 times zeta. When phase margin is expressed in degrees, the phase margin and the closed loop damping are connected by this equation. So if I draw the Nyquist plot of my open loop system and find out at what value of at what frequency the gain becomes equal to 1, and I compute the phase at that particular frequency and determine the phase margin, I can tell that for a feedback system, if I were to wrap feedback around this open loop system, the corresponding closed loop system would have a damping factor which is equal to 1/100th of the phase margin. Okay, so if I discovered my phase margin to be 40 degrees, I can with confidence state that my closed loop system's behavior will be roughly that of a second order system with damping factor 0.4. Okay, likewise, if the phase margin is smaller, like 10 degrees or 20 degrees, my damping factor will also be smaller, 0.1 or 0.2. Okay, any questions?
Okay, sir.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, therefore, the phase margin is an important, design metric, because it indicates the extent of stability. If my zeta were equal to 0, what does that mean? My closed loop poles are on the imaginary axis, right? Because in the denominator, I'll have s square plus omega n square, and the roots of the denominator polynomial, which are the poles of the closed loop system, will be plus or minus j omega n, and those will be on the imaginary axis. But for my closed loop system to be stable, those poles had to be well within within the left half of the complex plane, not really on the imaginary axis. So therefore, the phase margin is an important metric that quantifies how far away I am from instability. If the poles are on the imaginary axis, I am on the threshold of instability. Any further, if I go a little bit further, my poles will be on the right half of the complex plane and my system would be unstable. Okay, so this therefore is a very important metric. We have at a design criterion. Okay, we have to be sure that our closed loop system, our open loop system has a certain minimum phase margin, so that our closed loop system has a minimum damping factor, certain minimum specified damping factor. Okay, so with this we shall get going with the design of a feedback system. So let me just state the problem. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir. One more
Yes.
thing. If phi becomes 0, then that will be surely unstable. No? That thing.
Well, if phi becomes 0, then this what does that mean? That this Nyquist plot will pass through the point -1. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That is right. What does that in turn mean? That in turn means that you have a pair of closed loop poles on the imaginary axis. Okay, so that is neither stable or unstable. It's marginally stable as per our definition. Okay, but marginal stability is also a risky thing. You want you don't want some initial conditions or disturbances to persist forever. So you want them to die down. So to ensure that your system is stable and not just marginally stable, your phase margin should be greater than 0. And the larger it is, the better it is. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So here is the plant. So I have an input U and an output Y, and the plant is P of S. Okay, and the plant also experiences an input disturbance D in. Okay, and I need to reject that input disturbance. So there is one other requirement. If I have some reference R of t or in the Laplace domain R of S, if I provide a step reference or a steady reference, the steady state error in tracking that steady reference has to be equal to 0. Okay, so I wrap a feedback system around this. Okay, and I choose a controller C of S such that these specifications need to be met. Let me write down the specifications. The plant P of S is given to be 100 by S plus 1. Okay, or in other words, it's a dynamic system whose input-output relationship is given by 100 times U is equal to dy by dt plus y. Okay, that is the time domain representation of the plant. In the frequency domain, its representation is through this transfer function P of S. Okay. Now there is input disturbance up to 5 radians per second. Okay, and this needs to be rejected by 80%. Okay, input disturbance up to 5 radians per second needs to be rejected by 80%. Why did I pick 5 radians per second? Presumably because that is all the frequency content there is for the disturbance. There is no disturbance. The disturbance does not have any frequency content beyond 5 radians per second. Okay, so therefore I need to worry about it only till 5 radians per second. And as long as I suppress all the frequency content by a factor of 5 or by 80% till 5 radians per second, my entire disturbance will not affect my output too much. Okay, so this is the specification that has been given to me by my boss. Okay, then the second specification is that there should be no steady state error in tracking steady references. Okay, so where would this problem arise? For example, in a refrigerator or an air conditioner, I will have a certain set point temperature. I want the temperature to be, let us say, 24 degrees centigrade for an air conditioner, or maybe, I don't know, inside the refrigerator, 4 degrees centigrade for the refrigerator or whatever. Okay. Now, initially the temperature may not be 4 degrees inside the refrigerator, but once I switch on my control system, the error will gradually start to reduce. Now, what I'm specifying here is that when when the transients have all gone away, when the system has reached steady state, the error should be 0. Okay, so the temperature should be exactly 4 degrees inside, not more, not less. Likewise, for an air conditioner, the temperature should be exactly 24 degrees centigrade. Okay, the error should be 0. So that is one requirement. So my boss gives me this problem. Maybe this could be a thermal system. Okay, because thermal systems are often first order systems. So this sort of captures the the rate of rise of temperature or some such thing because of some heat being provided to the system. This term here could capture the convective heat loss or some such thing. So you must have come across a model of this kind in your heat transfer courses. Okay, and this is the input power that you provide to your system. Okay, so in addition to whatever power that you would provide to take away heat, there is also heat flowing in into the room which is air conditioned, or into the refrigerator from the outside ambient, etc. And what has been specified here is that disturbance has the disturbance frequency content is at most 5 radians per second, not higher. Okay. So this is the specification, and you are asked to design a control system to meet these specifications. What does that mean in practice? You have to come up with a controller C of S which satisfies these two specifications. Okay. So the first question is, well, your boss has told you what he or she wants in terms of performance. What about stability? Well, it turns out that people will not tell you anything about what they want in terms of stability. Often they will not tell you that, because stability is something that you as a control engineer is expected to guarantee before you guarantee them a certain performance. These are all performance specifications. So what you should do as a control engineer, therefore, before embarking on a controller that gives you these particular performance specifications, is to set for yourself a certain stability specification as well, even though it might not have been given to you. So therefore, to this problem statement, I will add, as a control engineer, as a self-respecting control engineer who is also concerned about stability and is not trying to rip off his customer by giving them an unstable system which superficially meets the requirements, I will add an extra specification, and this is for stability purposes. Okay, so I shall add that the phase margin of the open loop system should be 40 degrees. Okay, I could have chosen a different number. I could have chosen it to be 60 degrees. I could have chosen it to be 20 degrees. 20 degrees generally makes it very risky, because some uncertainties in the plant model or whatever else can destabilize your feedback system. Okay, often in practice, 40 degrees is assumed to be adequate. But in some applications, maybe you want to be more conservative and choose a higher phase margin of 70 degrees or 80 degrees or some such thing. So it is application specific. In this case, I have decided that I will choose a phase margin of 40 degrees. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, now let us first plot. I mean, we would be undertaking executing the design using Bode plots, because as we discussed, that's quite intuitive. So let me draw the Bode plot of the open loop system. To start with, we have not yet designed our controller. So to start with the first cut, let us assume C is equal to 1. That's where we are at right now. Okay, we don't know what C we would need to pick eventually for us to satisfy all these three requirements. So with C equal to 1, the open loop system C times P is simply going to be equal to P. Okay, so I need to draw the magnitude plot of P of j omega. So 20 log magnitude of P of j omega what will that be? That will be equal to 20 log magnitude of 100 by j omega plus 1. Okay, the corner frequency for this is at 1 radian per second. Okay, and when omega is very small, the gain of this is 100. Okay, and omega is much larger than 1. This goes down as 1 over omega, right? So the Bode plot for this will look something like this. For low frequencies, this is log omega. This is magnitude of c times 20 log magnitude of c times p. Okay, in future, I just want to mention one thing. I might drop off these 20 and log and everything. I mean, because it is a pain to keep writing 20 log every single time. Okay, but when I write something here as a gain, when I say it is 100, I'm actually in a Bode plot talking about a gain of 20 log of 100. Okay, so at very low frequencies, the gain is a constant equal to 100 units, or in other words, 100 units or 40 decibels. Okay, now at omega equal to 1, the gain starts to drop, right? Because when the magnitude, so this is what, 20 log 100 divided by square root of omega square plus 1. Okay, so as omega increases, as omega becomes larger than 1, much larger than 1, this omega square plus 1 will roughly be equal to omega square itself. So this 20 log of 100 by square root of omega square will be 20 log of 100 by omega, which is 20 log of 100 minus 20 log of omega. So 20 log of omega minus 20 log of omega is going to be a straight line with a slope of minus 20 decibels per decade. Okay, so where will it cross the 0 dB line? Okay, where will it cross the x-axis? To determine that, you have to set the magnitude of p to be equal to 1 to find out where it crosses the x-axis, because the y-axis is a log scale. So when it crosses the x-axis, the log of that particular gain will be equal to 0, or in other words, p will be magnitude of c times p will be equal to 1. Okay, so how do I find out at what frequency this happens? I notice that this is roughly p of j omega in the vicinity of this is roughly equal to 100 by j omega, roughly, because this omega is much larger than 1 radian per second, right? So the magnitude of this is therefore going to be equal to 100 by omega, and that should be equal to 1. So this gives me omega as 100 radians per second. And if you notice, this is nothing but the gain crossover frequency that we talked about in the Nyquist plots, because the gain crossover frequency is the one at which the gain of the open loop system becomes equal to 1, becomes equal to unity. Okay, so this is omega GC, that's equal to 100 radians per second. Okay, what about the phase plot of this particular system? So the phase of the transfer function 100 by s plus j omega plus 1 is equal to minus tan inverse of omega, right? So when omega is very small, the phase is close to 0, and when omega is exactly equal to 1 radian per second, then the phase is equal to minus tan inverse of 1, which is equal to minus pi by 4, minus 45 degrees. Okay, so the phase drops to minus pi by 4 at exactly omega equal to 1. And for omega much greater than 1, the phase goes to minus pi by 2. Tan inverse of, as omega tends to infinity, this is minus tan inverse of infinity. Tan inverse of infinity is pi by 2, right? So this goes to minus pi by 2. So this is going to be the, the Bode plot of our system. Now, what is the phase margin here? You see that at the gain crossover frequency, so this angle is minus pi, right? So at the gain crossover frequency, I determine what the phase is, and this is the phase. It's close to minus pi by 2, may not be exactly minus pi by 2. The difference between minus pi and that phase, this length here, is the phase margin, which is comfortably greater than 40 degrees, because this gap here itself is 90 degrees, right? So this gap is much more than 40 degrees. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, let us take on the second specification first, for reasons that I will get to. I mean, I should have probably stated this particular thing first. There should be no steady state error for tracking steady references. So when is the error going to be equal to 0? The error is going to be equal to 0 when the plant has been inverted perfectly. Okay, so when perfect inversion happens, that's when the error goes to 0. But for perfect inversion to happen, do you agree with me that that high gain function h should have a gain which is the ideal value that it can assume? So what is the ideal possible value for the gain h? H should be as large as possible for us to invert the plant. The higher the value of h, the better is the plant inversion going to get accomplished. But what is the best possible value for h? Do you agree with me that the ideal value for h is infinity? So if the value of h is infinity, okay, at some particular frequency, then at that frequency, I'm going to achieve ideal behavior for the feedback system. There's going to be perfect rejection of disturbances, perfect tracking of references, perfect robustness to plant parameter variations, everything at a particular frequency. Okay, right now we have desired perfect zero steady state error or perfect control performance for tracking steady references. So steady references are references that don't change with time. So do you agree with me that we can view a steady reference as a reference of frequency 0 radians per second? So if I can view the steady reference as a reference of 0 radians per second, then what the specification is telling me is that my controller times the plant should have a gain of infinity at 0 radians per second in order for me to perfectly track whatever reference I provide at that particular frequency. Any questions about this? Okay, so good to know that you are following the logic. So what we want, therefore, the second specification translates to the following thing. The controller C of J0 should be equal to infinity. The magnitude of the controller C of J0 should be equal to infinity for perfect tracking of steady references. Okay, so this is the first requirement. What about the second requirement? So let us come to the second one first. Input disturbance up to 5 radians per second needs to be rejected by 80%. Okay, what is the transfer function between the output and the input disturbance? Y of s divided by d in of s is equal to p of s divided by 1 plus c times p of s. C of s times p of s. That's a transfer function. Or in the frequency domain, is going to be p of j omega divided by 1 plus c of j omega times p of j omega. Now, if you look at the Bode plot of that original plant, okay, the gain was 100, around 1 radian per second, and the gain became 1, around 100 radians per second. In between everywhere, the gain is always greater than 1. In fact, much greater than 1. So around 5 radians per second, which is going to be somewhere here, okay, the gain is still going to be quite close to 100, right? So this plant P, its gain is going to be quite close to 100. Now this controller gain, let us say, is also reasonably high, in which case I can approximate this as P of j omega divided by, I can replace the denominator 1 plus something with just C of j omega times P of j omega itself, because the plant's gain near 5 radians per second or up to 5 radians per second is actually quite a large number. It's around 100. Okay, and if controller's gain is also quite large, around 5 radians per second, I can ignore 1 in comparison with this product, and I can simply write it this way. And what this therefore indicates is that this is approximately equal to 1 by C of j omega itself. Okay, so the plant's gain does not matter, at these particular frequencies. So what this therefore indicates is that at 5 radians per second, so 1 by C of J5, okay, should be less than or equal to, there should be a 80% attenuation, right? So the ratio of output to input should be less than 1 by 5, right? So should be less than or equal to 1 by 5, 20%, less than or equal to 20%. So C of J5 should be, magnitude of C of J5 should be less than or equal to 1 by 5. Or in other words, magnitude of C of J5 should be greater than or equal to 5 units. So these are our specifications. These are the demands that we are making of our controller. Any questions so far? So we are converting the specifications of performance into requirements on part of the controller's gains. Any questions? Okay. The next step is to fix the controller structure. We need to find a controller structure that gives us these particular gains. Okay, so let me just plot the Bode plot of the controller alone. This is log of omega. This is 20 log magnitude of C. Okay, I know that at 5 radians per second, let us say 5 radians per second is somewhere here, the controller gain has to be at least 5. Okay, so this is 5 units. Okay, at 0 radians per second, which is not possible to indicate on the log omega plot. Just a moment, Varsha Vasudevan has a question. I'll just finish this point. At 0 radians per second, the controller gain has to be infinity. Okay, so the controller gain has to be infinity. So I have these two requirements at two frequencies. At no other frequency do I have any requirements. Yeah, Varsha, please go ahead.
Yeah, so the 80% reduction, so if the criteria was different, how would it affect this design?
So let us say I wanted 90% rejection. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you're asking, right?
Yes,
Then
yes.
what I want is only 10% of the disturbance should leak to the output. Right?
Yeah.
So what that means therefore is that the output by input around that frequency 5 radians per second should be less than or equal to 10% or 1 by 10.
Okay.
And that translates to my requirement that the magnitude of C should be greater than or equal to 10. If I wanted 10% rejection, sorry, 90% rejection. If I wanted 99% rejection, I want the magnitude of C to be greater than or equal to 100, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So we have two requirements. At this low frequency, it should be infinity. Around 5 radians per second, it should be at least 5. Okay. How many controllers exist out there which satisfy these requirements? Okay. It turns out that I can pick any dynamic system. I have the freedom as a control designer to pick any transfer function C of S, which is a ratio of the numerator polynomial to a denominator polynomial, with the degree of the numerator polynomial m being less than or equal to the degree of the denominator polynomial n. Because we said that our initial value theorem indicates that for any practical physical system, the ratio of the numerator polynomial should always be less than or equal to the ratio of the denominator polynomial. So since our controller also has to be a linear dynamic system, it too should satisfy this. Apart from this constraint, there is no other constraint on C of S. Okay, I can choose it to have any structure I want, as long as at those frequencies, C of J5, if I compute, and C of J0, if I compute, I get infinity in one case, I get at least 5 in the other case. Now, how many controllers can I find that satisfy this? There are infinitely many controllers that satisfy these specifications. Okay, so in fact, design is not like solving a problem in algebra, which has a unique solution. Design involves making an intelligent choice between many different possible solutions that are out there. Okay, so how do we pick from among these infinitely many controller candidates, all of whom possess possibly infinite gain at 0 and 5 units gain at 5 radians per second? How do we pick? Like any engineer from times immemorial, we go by one simple guiding principle, and that is simplicity, right? So we want to pick such a controller that it is as simple in appearance and as simple in practical realization as possible. Okay, so here is one particular controller which at least addresses the first requirement of infinite gain at zero frequency. Let us say I pick C of S is equal to 1 over S. So this is a polynomial. So this is a ratio of two polynomials again. The degree of the numerator polynomial is 0 because it's s to the power 0. The degree of the denominator polynomial is 1. So it satisfies this requirement that m is less than or equal to n. Okay, so this is a legitimate candidate of a dynamic system which could possibly be used as a controller. But does this candidate satisfy it? That it definitely looks simple to me. There's nothing complicated in its structure. Okay, just one single s term in the denominator. Okay, does this satisfy any of the performance specifications? Well, if I substitute omega equal to, so what is C of j omega? It is equal to 1 by j omega. And if I substitute omega equal to 0, what do I get for magnitude of C of j omega? It's equal to infinity. So exactly as I wanted, one of the specifications ends up being satisfied by this initial guess for the controller structure. My guess was guided by the time-tested principles of seeking simplicity in designing something. Okay, so I chose a very simple structure which gave me infinite gain. Great. So I'm happy that my performance specification at one frequency has been met with this initial guess. Okay, what about the performance at the other frequency, 5 radians per second? At 5 radians per second, what is magnitude of C of j omega? That's equal to 1 by j phi, and that's magnitude of 1 by j phi. And what is that? It's equal to 1 by phi. Damn. What did we want the magnitude of C of j omega to be at 5 radians per second? We wanted it to be 5 units. Okay, not 1 by 5 units. Okay, so clearly this controller structure is not going to satisfy the second performance specification at all. Okay, so we have to go back to the drawing board. So as close as we were to completing our design, we are met with this sudden obstacle that this controller does not satisfy the second performance specification. So what do we do? When we go back to the drawing board, again, we do not want to let go of simplicity as our guiding principle. So when we design, when we want to tweak this controller structure, we wanted to tweak it to the minimum extent possible so that it still satisfies, both these specifications. Okay, so if this was 5 instead of 1 by 5, I would be done. So what is a factor by which I need to increase the gain at 5 radians per second for me to meet the disturbance rejection specification around 5 radians per second? I need to increase it by a factor of 25. Do you agree with me? So this is the extent by which, factor by which gain of C of j omega has to be increased at 5 radians per second. Any questions about this? Okay, so if there are no questions, I know that around 5 radians per second, I need to amplify by a factor 5, the existing gain by a factor 5. So right now, let us say I have C of j omega is 1 by s. Okay, I'm not happy with its gain at 5 radians per second, although I get infinite gain at omega equal to 0. So I can get 0 steady state error for steady references. But for references of frequency content around 5 radians per second, I'm not getting adequate gain. So, but I need to, if I amplify this by a factor of 25, I would be able to meet the second requirement in particular. So let us say instead of 1 by s, I go with 25 by s as my controller, C of s. Okay. Does this hopefully address both our performance specifications? Let us check. For omega equal to 0, C of j0 is equal to 25 by j0. Instead of 1 by j0 that it was earlier, it becomes 25 by j0. and the magnitude of that is still infinity. So this new controller's guess still satisfies our first specification of tracking steady references perfectly. How about the second specification? So what is magnitude of C of J phi? It's equal to 25 divided by J phi. What is that equal to? Phi. Okay, so great. So we have now come up with a controller C of S which satisfies both the specifications and its evolution was guided purely by seeking simplicity. We just tried out the simplest terms that are going to give us this performance. Well, you could have told me, okay, Jayant, you said 1 by S, but I can think of a term that is simpler than 1 by S. I can just think of a simple proportional constant K. Okay, but if you, let us say you want a proportional constant K as the controller structure, can we ever get infinite gain at omega equal to 0? No, because the plant has a finite gain. That finite gain at low frequencies is 100. So the overall gain of your open loop system is only going to be finite. It's always going to be 100 times K. So no finite value of K is going to give you infinite gain at omega equal to 0, unless K itself becomes infinite. But if K itself becomes infinite, then we are stuck with these problems of stability and so on, as we discussed in the previous class. So we don't want to go with a static controller because of fears of instability. So the next best to this failed approach would be to choose a frequency dependent controller, but such that at around omega equal to 0, its gain is infinity. Okay, and that's precisely what we have done here. Any questions so far? Okay. So now that we have this controller, let us try to draw the Bode plot of the open loop system, right? So we have the Bode plot of the plant, which was something like this. It crossed over at 100 radians per second. I'm going to draw the magnitude plot first. The Bode plot of the controller, you know, this is log omega, this is log magnitude of C. It's an integrator. That's what it is called, 1 over S, because the transfer function is 1 by S or 25 by S. So the relationship between input and output, the input is error, the output is the control effort U. The relationship between that is U is equal to 25 times integral of E dt. The transfer function then would be 1 by 25 by S. Okay, so that's why it's called as an integrator. Okay, so the Bode plot would look something like this. So at omega equal to 1, the gain is 25. So this is 20 log 25. And the slope will always be minus 20 decibels per decade. And the slope of this also is minus 20 decibels per decade. Okay, so what is the overall magnitude plot? It is the addition of these two things. Here is where the intuition associated with Bode plots come to the fore. Okay, I don't need to take phase separately into account. I just need to add these two things, these two broken lines. In this case, it's just a single line. Here there is a pair of broken lines. If I add these two, what will I get? Okay, so the overall Bode plot would have a gain of 25 times 100, around 1 radian per second, which is a much larger amount than either of them. So before that, there will be a drop off of minus 20 decibels per decade. And after 1 radian per second, this guy, the plant is dropping off at minus 20 dB per decade. The controller is also dropping off of minus 20 dB per decade. When I add the two, I get that the overall system drops off not at minus 20 dB per decade, but at double that rate, at minus 40 decibels per decade. Okay, so the earlier gain crossover frequency was 100 radians per second. The new gain crossover frequency will be something else. Okay, so we need to determine the new gain crossover frequency. What is it? We can do it actually many times. These design steps can be undertaken by hand. What is the gain crossover frequency by definition? So the magnitude of C times P of j omega has to be equal to 1. Okay, so that frequency is called as the gain crossover frequency omega GC. So therefore 25 by j omega times 100 divided by j omega plus 1, its entire magnitude has to be equal to 1. I have to now solve this equation to get that omega at which this happens. Okay, well, I can solve this equation. It's because I have to represent magnitude of j omega plus 1 as square root of omega square plus 1, and then I would have to simplify and so on and so forth. But there's a much simpler way to do this. Okay, it may be slightly approximate, but nevertheless it's a lot simpler. You notice that at these frequencies, omega is much greater than 1. So for all practical purposes, C times P is approximately the same as 25 by j omega times 100 by j omega itself, because omega is much greater than 1. Okay, so you need to therefore find out when the magnitude of this is going to be equal to 1. Or in other words, when omega square will be equal to 25 times 100. So this gives us that omega has to be square root of 25 times 100, which is 5 times 10, which is equal to 50 radians per second. Okay, so instead of solving a complicated algebraic equation to get omega, I made an approximation here and very quickly in one step obtained the omega, okay, to be around 50 radians per second. So this is going to be the magnitude plot of the new open loop system. Any questions about this so far? Okay. What about the phase plot? So the phase plot, once again, is a summation of the phase plots of the plant and the controller. What is the phase plot of the plant? So we drew it earlier, log omega, this angle of P. So the phase was minus pi by 4, around 1 radian per second, and it asymptotically approached minus pi by 2, minus pi by 4. This was how the phase plot of the plant looked like. What is the phase plot of the controller? What is the controller? C is equal to 25 by j omega. Okay, so you see that is equal to minus 25 by omega times j. Okay, so this complex number is a purely imaginary number, can be written as 25 by omega times e to the power minus j pi by 2. Right? So this essentially indicates that the phase of this complex number 25 by j omega is minus 90 degrees or minus pi by 2. So at all frequencies it's minus pi by 2, independent of frequency. Okay, so its phase is always minus pi by 2. I'll just draw a horizontal straight line. This is the angle of C. So what is the angle of C plus P, or what is the angle of the open loop system C times P? It's the summation of these two angles, right? So that's going to be something like this. So this is angle of C times P is log omega. So when I add these two, I notice that the phase starts at minus pi by 2, doesn't change, and then around 1 radian per second, the phase comes down to minus pi by 2 minus pi by 4, which is minus 3 pi by 4. Okay, that is minus 135 degrees. Okay, then it asymptotically approaches minus pi, because at very large omega, the phase of the plant goes to minus pi by 2, and the controller is always minus pi by 2. So when I add the two, the phase approaches minus pi by 2 plus minus pi by 2, which is minus pi. This is how the phase plot of that plant looks like, of the open loop system looks like. Any questions about this? Okay, so we might think that we are ready to go home because we have come up with a controller that satisfies our boss, and that controller is 25 by S times, that's it, 25 by S. But does this satisfy the stability specification? We had set for ourselves this requirement that the phase margin has to be roughly 40 degrees. Now, what is the gain crossover frequency here? We found it to be 50 radians per second. So around 50 radians per second, we have to check whether the phase margin is 40 degrees or better. If not, we are in trouble. Okay, so let us compute the angle of C times P around 50 radians per second. So the angle of C times P is the angle of C plus the angle of P. The angle of C is always the same, minus pi by 2. It's independent of frequency. The angle of P, on the other hand, is minus tan inverse of omega by 1, because the corner frequency of the plant is 1 radian per second. And the omega at which the gain is crossing over is 50 radians per second. So the phase is therefore going to be equal to minus pi by 2 minus tan inverse of 50. Okay, so tan inverse of 50 is going to be a number that's going to be very close to pi by 2 itself. Why is that so? We can see from a particular identity, a trigonometric identity. You might remember this. Tan inverse of x plus tan inverse of 1 by x is equal to pi by 2. Okay, so if I were to use this identity, I would see that tan inverse of 50 is equal to pi by 2 minus tan inverse of 1 by 50. Okay, and tan inverse of a small angle is equal to that angle itself roughly. So it's approximately equal to pi by 2 minus 1 by 50. Okay, so if I substitute that here, I get that the angle of CP is equal to angle of C, which is minus pi by 2, minus the angle of P, which is minus of pi by 2 minus 1 by 50. Okay, and with this I get minus pi plus 1 by 50. So you see that the phase margin is an extremely small number. This is the phase margin. 1 by 50th of a radian. What is 1 by 50th of a radian? About 60 degrees is 1 radian, right? So 1 by 50th of a radian is therefore approximately 1 degree, a little bit more than 1 degree. I wanted a phase margin of 40 degree, and what I have got is a phase margin of little bit more than 1 degree. So my closed loop system will be dangerously close to instability. The closed loop poles will be very close to the imaginary axis. With this particular, if I were to stop my design exercise with this particular controller structure. Any questions so far? So the last performance specification, not the last specification, which corresponds to stability of the feedback system, is not met by this design. Okay. So now, if we can somehow address this last problem, then we are home. We are home free. Okay. How do we make sure that the phase margin specification is improved from being phase margin being very close to 0? It's only 1 degree or so. I want it to be pushed up to 40 degrees. And in doing so, I do not want any other performance specification to be affected, because my controller structure of 25 by S already guarantees to me that a disturbance up to 5 radians per second gets rejected by 80%, and already guarantees to me that my steady references can be tracked perfectly. Okay, I don't have any expectations from any extra modification that I make to the controller. I don't have any expectations on part of those modifications to help me with meeting any of the first two specifications, first two requirements. I only want this extra modification to help me with the phase. Okay, so let us now, to derive inspiration, let us take a look at the Bode plot of a term that looks something like this: S by alpha plus 1. Let us just take a look at a Bode plot of this kind of a term. So when I say Bode plot, what should I do? I should take substitute S is equal to j omega, and I should write it in this particular form. So what is the magnitude of this? The magnitude of this is magnitude of j omega by alpha plus 1 is square root of omega square by alpha square plus 1. And the angle of this term omega by alpha plus 1 is tan inverse positive plus tan inverse of omega by alpha. Okay. So if I were to draw the Bode plot, you notice that when omega is much less than alpha, the magnitude of j omega by alpha plus 1 is very close to 1. And when omega is much greater than alpha, the magnitude of j omega by alpha plus 1 is approximately going to be equal to omega by alpha itself. Okay. So if I were to draw its Bode plot, magnitude plot, okay, the magnitude of j omega by alpha plus 1, it's a log plot because Bode plots are all log plots. What will it look like? Up to, so the corner frequency omega is indicated here. For omega much less than alpha, the gain is 0 dB, right? Because 0 dB corresponds to a gain of 1. Okay. Now for omega much greater than alpha, the gain it increases. The gain increases at 20 dB per decade because it's proportional to omega. When I take the log of it, it goes as log of omega, right? So it goes as positive. The slope increases at plus 20 dB per decade. And if I were to extend it, there is going to be some error in computation between between this approximate straight line and the actual value. So these straight lines are called asymptotic Bode plots. Okay, but let me ignore that for the moment. Let us assume that this is the actual Bode plot of my of this particular term. This magnitude plot is not very useful, but let us look at the phase plot because that's where the advantage lies. I am looking for improvement in phase without modifying anything to the gain characteristics, right? So at omega equal to 1, at omega equal to alpha radians per second, what is the phase of this term? It is equal to tan inverse of 1 alpha by alpha, and that's equal to pi by 4, right? So at omega equal to alpha, the phase is equal to pi by 4. Okay, for omega much less than alpha, the phase is close to 0. It's going to roughly be equal to omega by alpha. So if I were to draw it, roughly by hand, the phase curve is going to look something like this. As omega becomes very large, the phase asymptotically approaches plus pi by 2. Right? Now, can we somehow put this term to good use for our particular problem? What are we confronted with? We are confronted with a situation which magically seems to be addressable by this particular term, because what I want is no improvement in gain whatsoever for frequencies less than 50 radians per second. That's already been taken care of by my by my controller 25 by S. That already gives me adequate gain. So I am perfectly happy if my gain is 0 dB for frequencies less than 50 radians per second. The only thing I'm hoping and expecting out of this particular term is an improvement in phase. And is that what I'm getting here? You notice that around alpha, I'm getting a phase lead of plus pi by 4. What is plus pi by 4? 45 degrees. Okay, which is more than 40 degrees, right? So what this indicates, therefore, is that if I were to take my controller C of S 25 by S and cascade it with a term of the kind S by alpha plus 1, then around that frequency alpha, my open loop system is going to get a phase boost of 45 degrees. Any questions about this? Good. So where should this alpha be now? That's the last question that we need to answer. Our gain is crossing over at around 50 radians per second, and that is where we are expecting a phase boost of around 40 degrees. So if I were to place my alpha slightly to the right of that, okay, so if 50 radian per second is somewhere here, then if my alpha is slightly to the right of that, then the phase that I'm going to get there is going to be almost exactly 40 degrees. Okay, so my controller structure, therefore, now to make sure that my phase margin is 40 degrees is going to be of this kind, 25 by S times S by alpha plus 1. Where alpha is close to 50, I shall simply put 50 right now for the sake of simplicity. Okay. Now this controller structure satisfies all our requirements. The low frequency, the DC requirement, steady requirement is met by this term here. The mid frequency, up to 5 radians per second, I wanted a certain disturbance to be rejected by a factor of 5, and that is met by this particular choice there. And my stability specification, of getting a phase margin of around 40 degrees is met by the inclusion of this extra term here, right? Because when I multiply this term with that thing, the phase of this term adds on to the phase of the existing controller and that of the plant. And therefore, I get an extra phase lead of about 45 degrees by multiplying the controller with this particular transfer function. And that's precisely what I was looking for, because my phase deficit was close to 45 degrees. Not exactly 45, maybe 40 degrees, but roughly this was the one. This makes a design slightly more conservative probably, because this is giving me slightly higher phase than what I wanted, namely 40 degrees. It's giving me 45 degrees, but that's fine. Okay. So this completes the design. Any questions about the process that we followed?
Hello, sir. Yes, sir. Here alpha is put right side of that 50 radian per second, but to be on the safe side, we can put it exactly on the 50 or maybe less than 50, so that we can have more than 45 to be on the safe side. Because if we are putting that to the left of the alpha, means 50 radian, then it may so happen that it may go to 40 or less than 40. So my question is,
I think the first thing I want to point out is how intuitive this tool is. It is so intuitive that a student, like I'm assuming it is Subhadeep, who is seeing this for the first time, is able to come up with a guess for an alternate controller that might also do the job. And Subhadeep, you're absolutely right. Okay, there is nothing preventing us from moving alpha a little bit to the left in order to hopefully meet the performance specifications better, because in that case I'll get an angle slightly more than 45 degrees. So in the interest of being slightly conservative, I could probably do that. Okay, so what is worth celebrating about this tool firstly is how intuitive and clear it is, that even when you are being taught this for the first time and you're seeing it for the first time, you can automatically come up with suggestions and alternate approaches to doing the design. Okay, but there's a small problem here which I wish to point out, a practical problem with your suggestion. See, this plot here is the asymptotic plot. Okay, the actual Bode plot, if I were to plot the log of magnitude of this, will very closely match this, but near the corner frequency, the error will be rather slightly larger than what we would like. Okay, so if I were to put my alpha slightly to the left of 50 radians per second, then around 50 radians per second, there will be a slight increase in gain due to the inclusion of this term. And because the gain has become slightly higher due to the inclusion of this term, the gain crossover frequency cannot any longer be at 50 radians per second. It will move slightly to the right. Okay, so now you have to compute the phase at that gain crossover frequency, phase margin at the new gain crossover frequency, and confirm that that phase margin is better than 40 degrees. But otherwise, I think it's a small modification which I think we can do. Okay, so whether it is slightly to the left or slightly to the right, I think this approach more or less meets our requirements. Any other questions? Okay, now so far we adopted a particular strategy for doing the design, but what I want to do now is to show that this approach is not unique. Okay, like any design exercise, there are multiple solutions, and we often have the freedom and the flexibility to choose one over another. Sometimes at a theoretical level, we cannot make any distinction between 2 or 3 different controller structures which satisfy these requirements. But maybe at a practical level of implementing it in terms of hardware limitations, etc., some designs will be better than others. So let us, at a theoretical level, look at one other controller structure which also accomplishes the same objective. Okay. So let us look at what happened that prevented us from that required us to amplify the integrator gain by a factor of 25. The integrator had a roll-off of minus 20 dB per decade. This is log omega. This is 20 log magnitude of C. It was because at 5 radians per second, the gain of the integrator was 1 by 5. We needed to use an amplifier of factor amplification factor 25, so that the overall gain of this controller 25 by S becomes at least equal to 5, right? But suppose instead of this particular controller structure, suppose I had introduced a 0 at 1 radian per second. Or in other words, instead of choosing 1 by S as the controller, let us say I had chosen to use S plus 1 by S. So what does this term S plus 1 do? We just discussed that, right? So we saw that S plus 1 has a magnitude plot which is 0 dB up to 1 radian per second and plus 20 dB per decade after 1 radian per second. So if I have S plus 1 by S, then the overall Bode plot will be the summation of these two Bode plots. For omega less than 1 radian per second, this Bode plot adds 0 gain. So it's going to be the Bode plot of the integrator itself. But for omega greater than 1 radian per second, this is coming down at minus 20 and that is going up at plus 20. So together they'll cancel one another and the gain will become 0 dB. Okay. So now at 5 radians per second, instead of the gain of the controller being 1 by 5 as it was for the for a simple integrator, it's now going to be equal to exactly 1. Okay, because it's 0 dB. Okay, so now I still need to amplify the gain. I cannot still settle for settle with this controller, right? So what I need to do is the extent by which I need to amplify has now come down. I don't need to amplify now by a factor of 25. I need to only amplify by a factor of 5. So my controller C will have to be of the kind 5 times S plus 1 divided by S. Okay. Now I need to go to the third step, namely see what the phase margin is with this particular controller. And then if the phase margin is less than 40 degrees, I need to take action there as well. Okay. So what this indicates therefore is that control design is not unique. Okay. You can have multiple controller structures which do the same job for you. But in either case, if you look at either this or the previous one I shall write down again. C of S was of the kind 25 by S times S by 50 plus 1, right? If I write it as, if I expand it out, I can write this as 5 plus 5 by S. Okay, and this I can write it as 25. This is 1 by 2 plus 25 by S. Okay, so you see that in either case, it is a summation of a proportional term and an integral term, because this does the job of integrating error, that does the job of scaling the error. In one case, it scales by a factor 5. In other case, it actually attenuates by a factor 2. Okay, so this kind of a controller where you have a proportional term and an integral term is called as a PI controller. Proportional integral controller. It turns out that for more general problems, you need another term also, which is for derivative action, and we shall probably briefly look at that controller structure in the next class. But the point remains that control design starts with first gathering together all the specifications, both in terms of performance and stability, and subsequently going about satisfying all the performance specifications. In other words, choosing those gains at different frequencies to be whatever they ought to be in order to reject disturbances by the specified amount. Okay. Once you are done satisfying all the performance specifications, now focus on the stability requirements. If you noticed here, after I was done satisfying the first performance requirement, I didn't immediately jump down and look at what happened to the phase margin. I reserved discussion of the phase margin to the very end. So once you are done satisfying all the performance specifications, look at the phase margin. If it is not adequate, use zeros. Use terms of the kind S by 50 plus 1 or whatever. Add appropriate zeros to the numerator of your controller transfer function to provide the kind of phase that you want it to have. Okay, so these are the steps that one would follow for executing design in frequency domain using Bode plots. Okay, so we shall stop today's lecture at this point. In Tuesday's lecture, which is going to be the last lecture, we're going to discuss one other design tool which complements Bode plots and Nyquist plots very well, and that's the root locus. And with that, we will be done with this course. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Actually,
Yes.
sir, there you have said that we should add 0 and all. So that will you please repeat that? Then.
You mean the addition of the 0, is it?
Yes, sir.
So was the addition of 0 for the previous class clear to you, that it enabled us to increase the the phase margin? That was clear to you?
No, sir. Actually, no.
So we took a term of this kind, okay, and what we noticed was that around the corner frequency of this term, okay, S by alpha plus 1, I get a phase boost of 45 degrees, but without any change to the magnitude, okay, because the magnitude plot remains around 0 dB for frequencies less than alpha, and for frequencies greater than alpha, of course, there's an increase in the magnitude, which we shall not worry too much about. What is important, however, is that in the neighborhood of alpha, the phase lead that I get out of this term is 45 degrees. Okay, so if I were to multiply my already existing transfer function for the controller 25 by S with this particular term, then I will get a phase lead of 45 degrees around that frequency alpha. Okay, now it so happens that at the moment I'm struggling to get the required phase margin. My phase margin turned out to be close to 0. So I want actually a phase boost of 45 degrees around 50 radians per second, my gain crossover frequency. So if I choose alpha to be 50 radians per second, then around that frequency, I get a phase lead of 45 degrees. And that makes the phase margin of the overall system greater than 40 degrees, which is what I wanted the closed loop system to have in the interest of stability. That term, the new term, does nothing to the other specifications of performance, because S by alpha plus 1 has a gain of 0 dB or a gain of 1 for frequencies much less than 50 radians per second or much less than alpha. Okay, so this term does nothing to the specifications that we have worked hard to engineer so far through this particular term here, 25 by S, but helps us by improving the phase margin and rescuing our closed loop system from being on the threshold of instability. Okay, so that's the role that this 0 plays in this particular case. In the second case that I discussed, here we had a gain of 1 by 5 to start with, because we allowed the integrator characteristic to continue up to 5 radians per second. And the integrator ended up attenuating the gain beyond 1 radian per second. Okay, the extent of attenuation at 5 radians per second was 1 by 5. So that's why we needed to multiply this controller with a factor of 25, so that the overall gain around 5 radians per second ended up being 5. But now, suppose I were to introduce a 0 at 1 radian per second, then that 0's characteristic cancels the decreasing characteristic of the integrator beyond 1 radian per second, so that the overall magnitude plot for j omega plus 1 divided by j omega, okay, will reduce at minus 20 dB per decade till 1 radian per second, and then will be flat after that. Okay, because this plus that, I need to add these two to get this. Okay, and if it is flat, what this means is that the gain now at 5 radians per second for the controller is 1 unit. Okay, not 1 by 5 unit, it's instead 1 unit. And therefore, I need to only increase the gain by a factor of 5 in order to meet my performance specification. Namely, the overall controller gain at 5 radians per second has to be 5 units. So I just need to multiply it by a factor of 5. Okay, so this, in one case, the 0 that I added, S by 50 plus 1, helped to give me the necessary phase margin. In this case, it helped me to give me the necessary gain. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
So Dhanashri has a question.
Sir, I had one question doubt from the assignment 7. Can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead. If I can answer it now, I will. Otherwise, maybe I'll reply to your email or something. Because I don't remember what I had done. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, sir, in the question 4, it is asked that use the MATLAB to simulate the time evolution of the state estimate. So, sir, there are we supposed to use the MATLAB Simulink or the analytical expression for the state estimate?
I leave that to you. I think it would be good if you can use MATLAB Simulink because it's a very intuitive tool for simulating system dynamics. So that's what I would suggest. If you are comfortable with Simulink, please use that.
Okay, okay, sir.
Anything else? Okay then. So if there are no further questions, I will sign off at this point.